Now, let's look at the different media types. We'll take them one at a time and look at some of the pitfalls and advantages as we go through them. Direct mail. Let's start with direct mail. Over the years, direct mail has got a bit of a bad rap, mainly because people position it as junk mail. But I think it's only junk mail when it has no real use to the person who's receiving it, which tends to suggest that either the creative work on the document is not right or where it's being sent is not right. The key to success when it comes to direct mail campaigns is the right data. Which letterbox or which household or which hand do you want the actual product to go into? If you don't have the right data, then really you've taken out a bit of a shotgun and you're just having a bit of a blast. There's no science or thought going into what it is that you're trying to achieve. You're just firing randomly. I think everybody gets one random shot, and then you need to make a decision about the success of that campaign and who reacted positively to it. However, having said that, there is a very easy way to take the random nature out of that first campaign, and that's by doing a bit of research beforehand. Talk to your actual customers and find out what it is they're more likely to desire and what it is that you can offer that's going to once again solve some problems for them. One of the things you've got to avoid is these open slather lists that you can buy. They have a purpose, but if you're trying to maximize your marketing reach, then targeting is really what it's all about. So you should be looking at the data from your existing customers first up and considering what it is about them that holds them together with some sort of common thread. Is it geographical, socio-economic, psychographic? So once again, it goes back to doing the research that we talked about earlier. Once you know that about your customers, then you can extrapolate it into direct mail and the list that you're going to use to target. Because there is going to be a larger number of people who share those common traits with your existing customers. They're the ones that you want to get after. If you haven't bothered to collect that information from your customer base, then you need to start. I really recommend that you do that before you consider the actual implementation of a direct mail campaign. Many businesses fail to properly understand the benefits of engaging a professional graphic designer or a copywriter, and this is a big mistake. They feel they know how to write a direct mail piece themselves and therefore discount the specific skills that these people have. The reality is that you need to get someone who can write the article or document for you, someone that will speak to your customer base. You want the same when it comes to the actual setup of your document. Please don't feel that you can knock together something in Publisher or Word with the same level of skill that someone who makes a living as a graphic designer or a copywriter. And whatever you decide to do, keep the information on your flyer clear and simple. That way you can ensure that your target understands the offer that you're putting in front of them. And something else that you need to consider is don't overfill the document. Don't put too much information into this document and overwhelm people because, well, they won't get the principal message that you're trying to get them to act off. And if that's the case, then once again, you've hung yourself. You're not able to move forward with greater accuracy as a result of your direct mail campaign. Don't offer things in your direct mail piece that you can't deliver on. Remember, an unhappy customer will destroy your business very quickly. And that's a definite pitfall to watch out for. Ballpark costs? Well, there are a couple of costs you've got to consider when it comes to direct marketing. There's the cost for writing and designing it. There's the cost for printing it. There's the cost for distributing it. And potentially as well, you could also have the cost of purchasing that outside list if you need to reach people in a hurry and you're willing to risk that broader group. They all add up, and remember the thing to measure off is the cost per thousand, because you can measure it across all of the different type of media that you can expect to use. In terms of distribution of the mail piece, the actual mailing of it, that's going to cost you approximately $50 per thousand. Printing is very different, because 100 might cost you $60, while printing 500 might cost you $120, so it's not proportional. A lot of the cost when it comes to printing is the actual setup of the press to run the product off. The thing I'd bear in mind is that once you go to 500 copies or beyond, it actually becomes cheaper to print it on a printing press as opposed to photocopying it. The cost of writing and laying it out from a graphic design point of view, well, that's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question. Really, you must work that out with your designer and your copywriter to keep your costs under control. Set parameters. Usually this blows out when a client starts adding stuff to the brief after the job has been commenced. A very small thing added to the brief can require quite a lot of redesign because you design something and write something from the point of view of achieving the goal as set out in the brief. You make a minor change and it could cause you to have to go right back to the very start and rearrange everything. So what you think is a minor change could in fact be a major amount of work and could become a substantial addition to the cost. Frequency of direct mail? I would say that you don't do direct mail just once. It's something that you need to do with repetition, but that can have potential cost blowouts as well. I think that the thing to be most mindful of here is making sure that when you're putting your direct mail offer out there, that it's going into the hands of the right people at the right time. Timing is very important. The hardest thing to do with direct mail is getting it across the threshold, going past the person's front door and getting inside the house to be read. A lot of direct mail that is mistimed gets dumped in the garbage before it even makes it into the house or past the front door or in front of the person who might be the potential target. So you need to be sure that it's going into the hands of the right person at the right time. Just remember, the biggest cost blowout is always changing your mind midway through a particular project. Local event sponsorship. This is another form of marketing that a lot of small businesses do take part in. You need to look upon sponsorship as genuine advertising and not as a donation. Seriously, if you're parting with cash, it shouldn't be a donation in this particular case. It's a commercial enterprise to get people to buy your products, not just because your child or friend is playing with a particular soccer team and you can afford to sponsor it. The whole idea of doing a sponsorship is to achieve inquiries and convert that into business. So when you set up a sponsorship agreement, you need to make sure that it's specified what you're going to get in return. And in a lot of cases, especially with smaller local sponsorship, the people who are setting it up aren't really prepared for that sort of question. So you need to spell out what you want in return. Make sure you get it in writing and that you do achieve what you want. For the most part, a sporting team or whoever is only interested in the money. What you're doing is providing them with cash to solve a problem that they've got. It might be new jerseys or whatever. So make sure that what you expect in return is spelt out and specified. This could be the opportunity to direct mail their database. It could be that you want to get flyers passed out or get the coaches to pass out flyers at the games or at training. You are looking for the marketing potential in what's going on. Perhaps it's about having signage at the event. All of these things are important. You need to make sure that the things that you are sponsoring are going to actually provide you with a return. One of the pitfalls that many businesses get stuck in is that the group of people who they're trying to reach through the sponsorship don't actually buy their product and potentially won't buy their product. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. There's not much point in sponsoring an event if you sell meat and the greater majority of people at that event are vegetarians. Yet, people do this. They don't think practically about who it is that they're reaching out to with their sponsorship. And you should also remember not to sponsor anything that you're not passionate about, because you're going to have to be involved in the sponsorship and spend time to achieve your results. Costs? 100, 200, 500, 5,000? Any of those are actually possible when it comes to sponsorship. Really, that's why I say once again, measure it by cost per thousand. Who are you reaching? What are you going to get? Different people will put different prices onto their sponsorship based on what they're trying to achieve, not on what you're trying to achieve. Once again, they're trying to solve a problem, and that problem isn't to help you reach your potential customers. It's to provide new balls for their team or a snazzy finish line for their actual event. All of these things you need to consider. So make sure that you're passionate about it and you're going to get bang for your buck. Frequency is obviously going to depend on the actual event that you're sponsoring, but for the most part, it's better to sponsor something that's a multi-week event rather than a one-off. An example of a one-off event is a fun run, as opposed to the sponsorship of a local football league, which might run from anywhere from 15 to 26 weeks. With a multi-week event, you get lots of opportunities to have the exposure and impact on the people that you actually want to target. You need to remember, when it comes to sponsorship marketing, that it's not a quick fix type of campaign. It really does involve spending time and grinding it out to get a result. Cost blowouts, you need to remember that for every dollar that you spend on a sponsorship, you're probably going to have to spend another dollar to get your message across through additional printing and distribution, or time that you've got to spend at the actual events, working the crowd. All of these things add up. Banner, signage, etc., all of those sort of things. So don't think if you spend $500, that's the end of it. You really should be looking at spending at least double that to try and reach out and get this group. And that also needs to be balanced up as part of your cost per thousand. Newspapers. The key to making newspaper campaigns successful is to make sure that your message is focused and that you're not trying to crowd too much into any particular message. Don't lose focus of what it is you're trying to offer the people by confusing them with too much information. A lot of people try to say everything in their ad. They feel that they must get 100% value for every column centimetre they buy in a paper, and they end up saying nothing. The reality is, when it comes to newspaper ads, white space, that space with nothing in it, actually makes your ad more effective because people's eyes are drawn to it. You have to remember that newspapers, by their own nature, are very cluttered with the amount of text that's actually on the page. What you're trying to create is a little island of calm on that page that'll draw someone's eye into it and get them to read what you want them to read. You also need to make sure that your ad has a strong headline, which we discussed previously, and also a call to action, a phone number, a web page, a place to visit, a special offer, even a coupon. If you're sending them to a web page, make sure that you send them to a web page that you can measure the increase in traffic on, so you know whether or not that ad has actually worked. Don't just send them to the home page of your site, because then how are you going to know how well the ad has actually worked, whether it's been effective or not? Other people might have been going to your website at the same time for totally different reasons, and it'll become impossible then to measure the traffic that's come off that press ad, especially if you send them to the home page and you want them to then go to another page where your offer is. This is really tough, because you're then getting them to jump through another hoop. The more hoops you ask people to jump through, from a marketing point of view, the harder it is for your ad to actually be effective. Don't underestimate the creative component of a press ad. You need to make sure that you're getting absolute bang for your buck, because there's quite a range in costs per column centimetre in different newspapers. To give you an example, a local daily newspaper might only cost you $2.50 per column centimetre. Newspapers are measured in column centimetres, 1 centimetre high by 1 column wide. Whereas a daily newspaper in Tasmania, say, is between $18 and $22 a column centimetre. And that doesn't even count page loading, colour loading, and a whole heap of other loadings that can go into it. And if you look at the major dailies in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, then you're talking about $100 plus per column centimetre, sometimes $150 plus per column centimetre. But it's relative once again. It's to do with the cost per 1,000 people that you're actually going to get to see your ad. One of the things you do need to keep in mind with newspaper is placement. You want your ad in the prime placement for your target, and you don't want to compromise on that. If you do have to compromise, pick another day to put it in. If no other day works for you, then move the campaign. If you compromise, you are compromising with the success of your campaign, and that adds to the total. And don't forget, you also have to consider things like colour loading, as I said before. Each newspaper will have a different cost for its colour loading, and that also can cause your costs to blow out. If you're looking to place a press ad, remember that newspapers are effective call to action mediums. So have the ad printed on the day that you want someone to take action. Don't put an ad in one day expecting that they're going to do it 3 or 4 days later. People's attention's not going to carry that far. The retention of information will diminish across that period. So you can consider placing an ad across multiple days if your ad runs across multiple days, but please don't expect a newspaper ad to be effective beyond the day that the paper comes out. And the potential cost blowouts, once again, come back to placement. Not getting the ad in the right spot, which causes it to not reach the right amount of people, so that changes your cost per thousand. Changing your mind once the creative has been made for the ad, or once the creative is underway, can also blow costs out. As I was saying with direct mail, small changes can lead to big cost blowouts because the ad may need to be entirely remade, and that is just a disaster for your wallet. In-house promotions are pretty important, and they're definitely a great starting point for someone who is beginning to do some marketing. Eye-catching banners, in-store sampling, giveaways, blow-up figures that attract attention on the street. But the big thing when it comes to this type of in-house promotion is timing and relevance to your customers. Once again, remember to measure the result as you should be doing with everything we've discussed. Keep statistics on the promotion, during the promotion and after the promotion to see how effective it's been, because this type of promotion is only going to give you a short-term increase in traffic in your store. And don't assume that all of your customers are going to be interested in what it is that you're doing. This is niche marketing inside of your business for particular products. So you need to see it for what it is and measure it for what it does. Look for opportunities to upsell this type of promotion so that they buy one product or service and then get an add-on product at the same time. If you're having to discount on that particular product or service, not discounting on the add-on is also a great way to claw back some of the margin. Costs for this can be surprisingly expensive. For example, you could easily spend $2,000 to $5,000 on a blow-up figure. Even renting blow-up figures can be quite expensive. The in-store demonstration can also be quite expensive. To have someone who is properly trained to do these presentations can be quite costly. But the reason you have to pay so much to do them is because they're very good at what they do. They know how to overcome people's shyness when it comes to walking up and being interacted with. Most people don't want to be disturbed. They're in their own little bubble. They don't want you to talk to them. They're walking around with big signs above their head that says, "Don't talk to me. I'm just here to do what I've got to do." A skilled salesperson can do these product demonstrations. And of course, there's a cost of the product that's being consumed at the same time. That adds up as well. In terms of the number of times you should do this promotion, you can't do it all of the time. I wouldn't be doing it every week or every weekend. What you've got to do is pick the times to do it. If it's a seasonal promotion like Christmas, Easter or Valentine's Day, then you've got to make sure that you can get usage out of the promotion over subsequent years. Now obviously you can't make it go on forever, and the promotional product that you're using will become tired and tattered and need renewing as well. However, it's good if you can spread the costs over more than one period of time. That way your cost per thousand will be lower again. Billboards. Don't view billboards as a purely branding exercise. Really, you should be making every piece of advertising you do call to action, because you can brand and call to action at the same time. If they're being exposed to your advertising, they're being exposed to your branding. So call them to action in some way, shape or form with any billboard or signage that you're doing. For example, if it's a billboard and it's sitting at a set of traffic lights, people can browse their websites from their phone. So you could easily be sending them off to somewhere on their phone while they're sitting at the traffic lights. So make sure with any signage or billboard that you ask your potential customers to do something. And if you are sending them to a website, remember to send them somewhere where you can measure the results. Don't fall into the trap of thinking because your billboard has 30,000 people driving past it or walking past it every day, it's going to give you amped up success. A large number of people, when it comes to billboards and signage, doesn't necessarily mean large results, because it's very random in terms of the number of people who are seeing it. Sure, you can say, well, I've targeted my billboard to an area where I know a large number of people are going past, and those people are potentially more likely to be my customer because of geographical reasons. But they've got to actually see your product. To give you an example, if your billboard's at a set of traffic lights and it's visible to everyone who's stopped at those traffic lights, obviously you've got a reasonable chance of them actually seeing it, providing that the artwork on the billboard is effective. However, if it's not at a set of traffic lights and it's on a road as people are driving past, then maybe they won't see it as much. It will have traffic, but in terms of recognition and readership of the actual billboard, that won't be as high. Cost for billboards? Well, it's based on the number of people who see it per day. You can actually pay quite a lot. There are billboards that I know of that you can get for $600 to $800 a month. There are also billboards that I know of that cost $20,000 a month. Having said that as well, I also know of billboards in other cities that cost as much as $20,000 a day. So you need to make sure that the effectiveness of your billboard is pretty much spot on. And also, the printing of your billboard is quite expensive. It's going to cost you $1,000 plus to get it printed. And the artwork is important because once again, you've got a limited number of words to get people to do what you want them to do. The imagery needs to be spot on. Really, you need professional help when it comes to creating good signage. And by good signage, I don't just mean billboards. Good signage requires someone with a professional eye. And by that, I don't necessarily mean a signwriter. The signwriter's skill is his ability to make the sign. His skill is not necessarily from a marketing point of view. If you can find a signwriter that has marketing expertise, fantastic. Snap him up and send me an email. I'd love to know where he is. In terms of frequency, you need a billboard to be up for as long as it possibly can be. But at the same time, putting it up and taking it down, putting it up and taking it down can also attract attention. Change is something people notice, so never be afraid to take it up and put it down. But do be aware, of course, that there is a cost in taking it up and putting it down. Where I was growing up, there was an equipment hire place which was pretty much invisible, even though they were sitting right at a set of traffic lights. Most people didn't notice that they were there because there was just a lot of equipment parked behind a fence. Their signage really wasn't very good. So what they did is they created some unique signage. They had a cherry picker, and in that cherry picker they put some mannequins over a period of weeks that played out a story. You could see the young teenage mannequin, and then the next week she'd be out on the town dressed up in a party dress. Then there'd be two mannequins up there, her and her boyfriend, and then all of a sudden the female mannequin was pregnant, and the father mannequin appeared and was forcing them to get married. It was really quite funny and engaging, and everyone noticed it and everyone talked about it. In fact, even the local radio station was talking about it. And suddenly everyone recognised that there was an equipment hire place right at that set of traffic lights. In terms of signage, it was very, very cheap and really quite clever and extremely well thought out. Online directories and telephone directories. Now this is a minefield at the moment because there is so much change going on. I think that the main printed telephone directory is just about dead. If it's not dead, it's certainly dying. I was in Paris recently and the yellow pages were delivered over there, and I was fully expecting it to be multiple volumes, and each of those volumes to be easily 10 centimetres thick. The reality was, it was a single volume, and I don't think it was really much thicker than about 2 centimetres. The printed phone directory is dying because people are searching for your web pages these days. Or they'll go to Google and put your industry into their search engine. Now, to set that off, Yellow Pages has in fact entered into a partnership with Google to try and get their data into Google's search engines. This will get their results much higher up in the search engine results. I think that in the next 12 months we'll see how successful this is. It could actually change the way people use Google if they're not happy being bogged down by so many directory results at the top of their search engines. It's a wait and see. If it does work, well, that's terrific. It'll require some slight modification of the way that people buy their Yellow Pages advertising, because Yellow Pages will become something that you actually buy online only. The thing that you've got to be careful of is the way that directories are usually sold by referencing to your competitors. So it's a first in, best dressed scenario. Or it's a, you need a bigger ad because the competitor's got a bigger ad. Don't be sucked in by that. Create a good ad and your ad will work. If someone's going to try and get you to buy out of guilt or fear, don't do it. The rest of your advertising is supposed to send people to your business. If you've discovered people who are shopping entirely in directories, chances are they're price buyers and they may not be the type of customer that you want to attract in the first place. Radio advertising is really quite interesting. Some people seem to think of it as a secondary media, but I actually think that it's more than that. I think that They think it's a secondary media because they don't understand how to use it properly. Radio is all about theatre of the mind. It's about creating pictures in people's heads, not about loud, screaming, do it now ads. The cleverer you are with your radio ads, the more effective it will be. Radio stations like to sell 30 and 15-second ads, and they like to sell them as BMADE ads, as we mentioned before, because it helps them with the management of their ad load, their yield. It doesn't mean that that's the way that you have to buy it though. You need to buy it the way it works for you. Create pictures in people's minds and it will be more successful. And you also need to remember, radio is a one-to-one communication. You are one person talking to one person. While people might physically listen to radio in groups, they don't absorb radio in groups. They listen to it as one person, so you need to communicate with that person to get it to work correctly. And you also need to make sure that that communication that you do with that customer is very clear and that the key points that you want them to retain is repeated. Don't just put something in there once, because once the 30 seconds has passed, you have to wait for them to hear the entire ad again. One of the downsides of radio is that people have to hear the radio ad between 2 and 3 times before they've fully absorbed the message. So repetition is very important in radio. In terms of costs, once again, cost per thousand is the best way to measure it. Seriously, I could show you how to buy radio for $1. I could show you how to buy radio for $50 or $100. It depends upon the market and how many people are listening and the cost per thousand. Ask your radio person about single source data. Give them the profile of the person that you're trying to reach and get them to narrow it down in their systems to tell you when those people are listening in the largest number possible. If you can reach them in their biggest possible number, then that's where you want your ad to be placed. That's why buying an ad on BMADE basis isn't necessarily the smart thing to do. And remember, when it comes to radio, people have favourite radio stations. They're very tribal. Radio is linked by music or by talk. So it's conceivable you can buy times from a single radio station to get to your targeted person rather than on a range of radio stations. You just need to remain focused on who it is that you're trying to reach. Television. Television's a medium that's going through a bit of change at the moment. Certainly the internet is affecting television. The difficulty with television in this country is that there is now more choice. Once upon a time there were only a few different stations that you could advertise on, and now there are 10 plus stations to choose from, all free to air. Unlike radio, you don't usually buy a single television station. People don't have a favourite TV station as such. What they do is have favourite programs. So you get to your target, and once again, you need to know who your potential customer is. You look at the profile of each program and you find out where your potential customer is in their biggest numbers, and then you chase those customers across the television programs to reach them and to get the frequency you need. Once again, 2 or 3 times people need to see the ad before it's taken in. So you chase them across different stations and different programs to make sure that they're seeing your ad all of the time and taking your message on board. And remember, the strength of television is that it's both visual and audio. They hear your message and they see your message. However, don't go overboard. Don't try and tell them too many things, because once again, they'll remember nothing. Keep it simple and repeat what it is you want them to take away from it. And as with all marketing, solve a problem for your potential customer. Offer a solution, sell the benefits. These are the things that make your marketing work to its maximum and get the message out there properly so that you'll get the best result. The downfall of television is that it can be quite expensive, both the creation of the ad and the broadcasting of the ad, depending on what market you're in regionally, and depending on who your market is, you might be spending anywhere from $100 to $1,000 for a TV commercial. In the capital cities, $20,000 is not out of the question for a primetime television commercial. And to make an ad could cost you anywhere from $800 upwards, depending on what's going on, what's involved, camera crews. Camera crews are expensive. Equipment is expensive, talent is expensive. When it comes to television, actually, everything is quite expensive. So you need to keep in mind when you're making the ad, and once again, be very clear about the ad that you're going to make, and don't make changes all of the time, because it just adds to the cost. Website marketing. This is emerging media. Even to say it's emerging media can be quite laughable because it's been around. I remember making my very first website in 1990, and that's 20 plus years ago. And I assure you that there were websites that had been made before I was making my first one. Websites are very powerful because they're your own newspaper, your own television station, and your own radio station. You control what you want people to see. It's very important though that the websites that you do make are keyword rich so that the search engines can easily find the website and what you want them to find on the website. Your website has to do two jobs, not just the job of conveying the information to your customer, but it has to get your customer there first, and the way to do that is through search engine optimization. Make sure that keywords are in your website so that when browsers like Google search for them, it recognizes them for what they are and pushes you up in the search engine results. So these are all very important things. You must also make sure that any imagery that you're using on your web page is there for a reason. It's not just there to make something look pretty or because you've got that photo. It must talk to your potential customers. It must have a reason for being there. The other thing when it comes to online social media, and I know a lot of people want to get involved with social media, they see it as being very cheap. Yes and no. You can do social media and not have lots of costs for yourself in terms of having to pay other people to do it. But the cost involved is your time, and that's why often it's actually better to have a professional doing it for you because they can actually do it a lot quicker. The thing with social media, like Facebook for example, is that it's important to have a landing page that welcomes people and immediately says to them, click the like button, because that's what you want. Facebook is a database. That's what it is, and it's about using it in a sensible way to market to your customers. However, when I say market to your customers, it's relationship marketing. It's not, here's the product for this price, buy it now. It's about forging a relationship with people that will bond with your company for a long period of time. It's branding them in so that they come to you as their first choice and making sure that they understand the full width of what it is that you have to offer. Lots of people want to talk to me about social media, but I think that that's something actually for another day. There's just so much to deal with when it comes to social media. So that's it. At this point, let's take some questions.